Hey guys, welcome back, it's Ripe again. In today's video, an entitled person at a hospital demanded that I give her my seat because she didn't want to stand any longer. I am an amputee and as far as I could see, this person had no obvious disability. She ends up attacking me and trying to rip off my prosthetic leg, claiming that I fake my disability. Have you ever seen that movie Hurt Locker? Yeah, that's me. That's what I used to do in the military before I lost my leg and was medically discharged. We were known as ammo technicians and an EXO, explosive ordnance officer specialized in the disposal of out-of-date munition. I know what you're thinking, explosives have a sell-by date. Yep, they sure do. Well, every so often, we take all the useless ammunition out to the middle of the desert and blow it all up. It's an incredible sight. And well, the ammo gets dumped into this huge pile that was taller than me, I'm 6'5" by the way, and then blown up. We sat on top of our wagons 5 kilometers away and the shockwave was still enough to almost blow us off the wagons. I can tell you're all wondering what this has to do with Hurt Locker. Well, it doesn't. On site EX disposal, it's just a small part of an ammo tech's job and most of the time we just send in a robot and blow it up. So anyways, back on track, one such time we had to dispose of a huge amount of munition. There was an accident which involved my leg, a large pallet of BAR mines and a NIG, new in green, who didn't know how to ratchet straps up properly. Inevitably, the pallet slipped, dumping its entire load on my leg and crushing it beyond repair, which basically meant I had to have it chopped off halfway up the thigh. I was in pain for a very long time and the following weeks were a blur. I got through it, had a successful amputation and was grafted a prosthetic. The physio was tough and was all about being in the right frame of mind, which I was not for a very long time. But I got through that too and was medically discharged soon after. I was still at the point in my life where I needed to make regular visits to the hospital just to check that everything was progressing as it should, which it was. Though I had to take increasingly potent painkillers, which I was told was normal. A slow increase in dosage until the right level was met. On one such visit to the hospital, which was gonna be a simple x-ray to make sure the bone was not slicing through the muscle laid over it, I met the most despicable Karen you could ever hope to meet. She was probably the worst human being to walk the face of the earth, to be honest. So my appointment had been on a day when every man and his dog decided to get into accidents or have that strange lump on their thumb checked out. Or think that their little cold meant they had jungle fever. Seating was sparse, but most people are genuinely nice, and a man who had impaled a finger with a nail saw that I was an amputee and left me his seat. You wouldn't have known that I was crippled as I was wearing cargo pants, but the crutch I still needed to balance with and the limp was a dead giveaway. Being so busy, I could expect to wait hours before my appointment was ready, and in that time the hospital only seemed to get busier. I'll tell you one really good benefit about being in the military: you will learn to fall asleep anywhere and everywhere. So naturally, I took the opportunity to catch up on a little sleep. I was rudely woken up sometime later to a very harsh pain in my stump. It felt like someone was kicking me with spiked steel-capped boots. When I opened my eyes, I was not far off. Karen was hitting me in the thigh with her handbag. "Oh, so you're alive." She gave me such a stink eye, she then immediately demanded that I give my seat up for her. "Oh, are you an amputee too?" I asked just as I was about to let the woman sit down. I'm not a monster. "No, but you should always give your seat up to a woman," she demanded. "I'm sorry," I said to her, "but I'm an amputee. It hurts to stand for prolonged periods." Now, fool me for thinking that Karen was a decent woman and would understand and go pester someone else, but what I didn't realize is that I had just done the single worst thing in the world. I denied a Karen and like a bull seeing red, she flipped a switch and turned nasty pretty quick. Now, being in the military, you meet a lot of different people, and I've seen that switch flip many times, especially during training. The training NCOs, non-commissioned officers, basically your lance corporals through to warrant officers, are experts at flipping that switch. I saw the realization in her face turn to disgust and then as quickly as that turn to sheer unbridled rage. Her shouting could be heard from the next town over. "How dare you tell me you're a cripple? Get your lazy ass off my chair now!" And other words to that effect. Again, veteran here, I've taken more than my fair share of beatings and over-enraged corporals who found the tiniest speck of dust on my beret. So I was used to this level of in-your-face aggression. The thing is, I'm not in the military anymore and I don't need to take this crap from anyone, especially not from Karen. I was not impolite to her by any stretch of the imagination. One of the core principles in the military is respect for others. So I calmly explained to her that I had an accident in the military and I was recently discharged. "Liar!" she screamed at the top of her voice, no doubt trying to draw attention to herself and embarrass me. Again, ex-military, I have done far worse things to embarrass myself, including calling naked bar during an officer's mess do. Karen ranted at me and I just sat there and took it. Now and then, when I thought she lost steam, I tried to explain that I lost my leg in the army. This all occurred in the space of maybe 5 minutes. So basically none of the doctors, nurses or security was fully aware of what was going on. "You're not a cripple, you fake veteran. My son is in the SAS and when I tell him about you, he's gonna kick your butt," she was shouting while I was still sat down. When she realized that she was not gonna get a rise out of me or that no one was coming to take her side, she went all in and grabbed my leg. To be fair, she did grab the wrong leg and started yanking the damn thing out of its socket. "Get the F off of me!" I was shouting back. Yep, I lost all my composure at this point. The act of her yanking on my good leg was jarring my bad leg, and trust me, no amount of painkillers was gonna stop that SOB from hurting. At this point, others started getting involved, trying to get her off me. "See, I told you, he is faking. He's a sick douchebag." When I still didn't move from the chair, it was kind of hard to do so at this point, she grabbed my other leg and ripped the prosthetic clean off. I swear, the pain was so bad, my body became numb to it and I could feel my stomach threatening to show me what I had for breakfast. Thankfully, security finally showed up right as Karen was gonna beat me with my own leg. There was a tussle, I think. I was a little out of it right then, but at some point Karen had wrestled free of the security officers and was right up in my face. I bet you cannot guess what happened next. Well, I threw up right in her face. The pain had gotten so bad that my body went into shock, which meant purging my stomach contents. I remember being in a daze for a few hours, nurses hooking me up with saline and morphine, and soon after the doctor came in to check my stump was not damaged, which thankfully it wasn't, and the police came by and took my statement. I made sure Karen did not get off lightly, using a small portion of the compensation money from the military to pay for a decent lawyer. I got the money back from Karen and then some. She was left with a hefty fine, 6 months in jail, and a lesson in not being a witch to strangers. And during the court hearing, I met her son as well. He was not SAS, but he was Royal Marines and an amazing guy, most commandos are. We still go out drinking from time to time. And yeah, Ripe Stars, if you enjoyed the title story, please don't forget to like the video, because that would help me tremendously, since recently, once again, YouTube is giving me some trouble and not really recommending my videos to my old subscribers. Anyway, the next one is titled Dog Revenge. So I live in a quite rural part of the world. There's lots of logging, hunting, trapping and mining that happens all around my neck of the woods, and honestly, I'm fine with it. I work in a field that is affiliated with this kind of industrial work. However, I've worked hard to make sure I live far away from other people's BS, so I don't have to deal with this kind of stuff, but of course my neighbor changed that. I moved to my home about 2 years ago in the early summer. I'd always wanted to live here and it was perfect until the middle of my first winter here. While we were outside working, my younger dog ran off into the woods. Not uncommon for her, she likes to explore. But just after we started looking for her, we heard the sounds of an animal in distress not far from us. We went as quick as we could to find the source of the noise. That is where we found our dog caught in a wolf snare. The only reason she survived was because she had put her leg through the same snare as well as her head, so her leg protected her throat from full strangulation. We were able to free her and she recovered quickly. I know the guy who set the traps, as it turned out he is my neighbor. When I spoke to him about it, he refused to take it down, even though it's very close to the property line. Now, for context, me, 24 male, and my girlfriend, 23 female, love this dog so much. She is the sweetest puppy and she has been through a lot, medical issues and injuries, and she is a huge part of our world. My girlfriend would be destroyed if anything happened to her. The dog did well for another year until today. I was at work when I received a call from my brother. The same dog had gone exploring while him and my girlfriend were outside working. They heard her making sounds of distress and not far away and then rushed to her immediately. They found her again in a wolf trap set by the same guy in the same place. For more context, this guy has never said anything to us about where he puts or when he sets up his traps, but it's along a trail near my home that people walk and ski on, often with their dogs. These traps are baited with meat to attract wolves, so obviously it would attract dogs too. My brother and my girlfriend, with the help of my mom, were able to free her just before I managed to get there from work. They had also run into the owner of the trap on their way out of the woods. When confronted, he simply said our dogs should not be so dumb and it was his trap line. We told him if he did not dismantle the traps, then we would do so. He simply replied, "Oh, okay," and left. Our dog is okay for now, and due to how close his traps are to our property, we have reported him to authorities, but so far we have heard nothing back. So as a group, me and my family have decided that if they want to threaten the safety and freedom of us and our loyal dogs, we will take it into our own hands. Starting this week, we'll be going up there daily to trip every single trap by hand so they cannot catch a damn thing. Don't get me wrong, I have huge respect for hunters and trappers, but not if you're irresponsible and trapping in what is essentially people's backyards. I will make sure you never trap a wolf or anything near my home again, you butthole. Don't F with my dogs. Edit: the land the traps are on is public land owned by the government for use by anyone who lives here. It's in the same area I harvest my firewood. The neighbor in question lives 4 kilometers from this area away, and I only live a few hundred meters away. It's not his land at all, he simply has a trap line that, according to some more research we have done, might not be legal. Also, apparently they are not even wolf traps, they are wolverine traps. I've lived here for decades and I've never seen a wolverine once. And the next one is titled Super Entitled Ambulance Karen. So this just happened last night and I still cannot believe someone would do this. I'm a 30-year-old male and a paramedic. I've been in EMS for the past 8 years and I absolutely love my job. Last night we were dispatched to a 75-year-old female who fell at home. The patient stated that she tripped over her carpet and hit her head when she fell. We arrived on the scene and noticed that the home was a duplex with our patient's door on the right and her neighbor's door on the left. We made our way into the home and found her lying on the floor. The woman was awake and breathing. We started asking her the standard stuff like, "Are you okay? Does anything hurt? Do you remember the fall?" etc. She stated that she has a pounding headache and that she remembers walking to bed and then waking up on the floor. In my field, that's a pretty big red flag. We also noticed that she's got a pretty good lump on the side of her head and a big bruise starting to form already. Noticing the bruise, I asked her if she was on any blood thinners. She said that she was on blood thinners for a previous stroke she had a few years ago, and we urged her to let us take her to the hospital because there was a possibility that the fall could have caused a bleed in her brain and she should go to the hospital to get some scans done. She then agrees and we begin to package her up. We applied a C-collar around her neck in case of any C-spine neck injuries. She denied any neck or back pain, so we lifted her up and placed her on our stair chair. A stair chair is exactly what it sounds like. It's a chair with tracks that we use to carry patients up and down stairs. As we were getting her out of the house, her neighbor whipped the door open and started yelling about how she could not sleep with all the lights and noises outside. Apparently, the sound of the stair chair woke her up and she was not happy about that. My lieutenant walked over to her and apologized and said that we were dealing with a medical emergency and that we would be leaving soon enough. The Karen neighbor then noticed that our patient was her neighbor, and that's when she started yelling about something totally different. The entitled neighbor started yelling, "You cannot take her to the hospital. I have errands to run tomorrow and she needs to watch my kids." My lieutenant again reiterated that we were here for a medical emergency and that her health is more important than her errands. The entitled neighbor let out a loud huff and then slammed the door in his face. We thought that was the end of it, but we were wrong. After a few minutes in the back of the ambulance, we told our lieutenant that we could take the engine crew back to the station and that we were gonna be heading out in a few minutes. After we checked her vitals, got an IV going and started giving her IV fluids, my partner got out of the back and went up to the driver's seat. About 5 seconds later, the back doors of my ambulance fly open, and who do I see? Yep, the entitled neighbor, of course. Apparently she needed a few minutes to get dressed before coming outside. I yell at her, "What the hell do you think you're doing?" She yells back, "I told you that she cannot go to the hospital because she has to watch my kids tomorrow." She then starts trying to pull the cot out of the ambulance with our patient on it. Luckily, she did not know how to unlatch the cot and could not get her out. Our patient says, "I cannot watch your kids tomorrow because I fell and I might be having a stroke." The entitled neighbor yells back at her and says, "You are fine." "You don't need to go to the hospital because you're not having a stroke." My partner then hears the commotion and goes to the back of the ambulance. He pulls her off the cot and I slam and lock the doors. You could tell that the entitled neighbor was about to become combative. It's important to know that either the police department or the sheriff's department responds to our calls too when it is at night. Because of where we were, it took a few minutes for the sheriff's department to show up on the scene, but he got there just in time. I could not hear much through the door, but I saw the officer get out of his cruiser with his taser drawn. My partner then runs back up to the driver's seat and starts heading to the hospital. The last thing I saw through the back window was the entitled neighbor stomping towards the officer and then her hitting the ground after being tased, which was super satisfying to watch. I was talking with my patient and asked what this was all about, and she said that the entitled neighbor will just drop her 3 young kids off at her house and leave for several hours at a time with no notice. My patient had no idea what she was supposed to watch the kids at all because again, the entitled neighbor never even gives her a heads up about these kinds of things. Like I said in the beginning, this happened last night, so I don't have any updates. Small update to the story, my contact at the hospital said that the patient does not have a bleed. She does however have a really nasty looking bruise on her face from the blood thinners. It's incredibly common and she will most likely be going home soon. There's no update on the neighbor, I probably will not hear anything back until my next day's shift. Another update. Hey everyone, sorry for the late update. Unfortunately, it's not as exciting as some of you would hope for. So I got in touch with the officer on that call and he said that the woman was not formally charged with anything. The patient is back home now and resting comfortably. Like I said before, the hospital found no signs of a bleed and she was discharged the next day. She was advised to file for an order of protection from the neighbor, but I don't believe I will ever be privy to that information unless something happens again. I read a lot of the comments and most people are saying to contact elderly abuse and DCFS. The only problem with filing those reports is having concrete proof. We never actually saw any children, so we cannot really say that they are abused or neglected at all. We can say that we have a suspicion, but for all we know, they could be living their best lives at home with the entitled parent. If the entitled parent had left and abandoned her kids, then that's another story. Calling DCFS without any signs of child abuse and just working off hearsay can just cause more problems if the accusations are unfounded. And by the way, the same can pretty much be applied to elderly abuse too. We have no actual proof of elder abuse occurring. The entitled neighbor was not involved in the actual fall, and there was no suspicion for any kind of financial, physical, emotional, or social abuse. The way our neighbor talked about the kids getting dumped on her was in more of an inconsiderate way and not in an abusive way. Long story short, the entitled neighbor was just kind of a butthole. I am however hoping that the patient presses charges for assault, but I don't know if she will. And yeah, ripe stars, I guess in this story the entitled neighbor is simply that, just an entitled neighbor and maybe not an elderly abuser, at least that's what I would hope for. As far as I could see though, there were no further updates to this story, so I think in the end everything was okay. Then again though, I would not really want to live close to a neighbor like that, and I certainly would not let my elderly mom or even my grandma or someone live next to someone like this. The next one is titled Worst Grandmother Ever, Part 1. To start off, I, 27 female, have lived with my grandma, 77 female, all my life. She raised my older brother and I, and for that I am eternally grateful. However, even though I love her, I have to admit that my grandma has always been extremely entitled, controlling and even manipulative, mostly regarding my life in particular. I still live at home and I act as her caretaker, as well as helping out my autistic brother. And because someone has made the accusation before, no, that does not mean that I am just mooching off of her, I actually take care of her. I cook her meals, I clean up for her, I help her bathe, do her hair and get dressed, I help her get to the bathroom and clean up after, I help her sort out her meds, I run errands and I do the shopping. As I am the only one that can drive, and I help her get to appointments, I push her wheelchair whenever she's in it, and I do anything and everything else she needs. I have been doing most of these things since I was still in high school. Yes, she pays for everything, but that's only because she has not allowed me to get a job in almost 8 years, always telling me things like, "What if you were at work, but I really needed you?" among other things. And even when I had a job, she took all but a fraction of every paycheck to put towards bills. Which I was fine with at the time because I felt like it was only fair to pay my share since I finally had an income. Every time I bring up looking for a job now, she has a million reasons to keep me from doing so. Most recently though, she has taken to hating my boyfriend, 24 male of 6 years, for pretty much no real reason besides for dating me. She talks crap about him constantly, calling him useless and good for nothing, insulting him behind his back on almost a daily basis, even though he is bent over backwards to help me out in many situations. She makes comments like, "He must not love you very much, since he never comes around." But then she pitches a fit every time he asks me on a date, and the only time she ever wants him coming to our house is when she can exploit him, like roping him into moving furniture or cleaning out the garage. She makes backhanded remarks about how we have been together for 6 years, but he has never proposed, but then raises hell if I spend more than a couple of hours with him on a date. She has even told me before, "You know, I would like for you to give me a grandchild sometimes before I die." But she loses her mind if my boyfriend even so much as kisses me anywhere near her. My boyfriend is the sweetest, kindest, most hardworking guy I've ever known, and he treats me better than anyone in my life ever has. He even has a great job and makes a decent living, owns his own home and car, and is very good with his finances. But she still has to nitpick every little thing about him to try and turn me against him. She even talks crap about his family, mother and brother, even though they also treat me extremely well. And no matter how much I defend any of them, she won't stop. This kind of came to a head the other night. For context, we have just been informed by our landlord that come June 2023, he is selling the house that we are renting, so unless we can come up with $30,000 to buy it from him, we will have to move. And by the way, Ripe Stars, where the hell can you buy houses in the US for $30,000? That seems really cheap. Unless it is a complete hellhole, of course. But anyway, that's a whole different can of worms in and of itself. But what floored me was that a few nights ago, my gran went from insulting my boyfriend's hair, he's been growing it out, to "Maybe we should move to state that is 2 states away, so you can get away from him," in the same breath. And no, she was not joking. I've been with him 6 years, but she wants me to move away from him because she hates him. Now, as far as us possibly having to move out in a year, she 100% assumes that I most definitely have to move with her and my brother to keep taking care of them, no exceptions. My boyfriend and I are already talking about sitting down with her to discuss my moving in with him instead, and I am dreading that discussion because I know it won't go well. All she has done for years is depend on me to the point that she actively refuses outside help because OP can just do it. She refuses to move to a retirement or assisted living home, and to make things even worse, she has already decided that after she's gone, I will be taking over full care of my brother without even considering what I want to do with my life. I just know she is going to go postal and lay on a massive guilt trip when I finally tell her I want to move out entirely, but I want to get on with my own life. I'm tired of my gran thinking she is entitled to my life. I'm sorry I don't have a conclusion for this right now. I will try to post an update when we finally talk to her. And yeah, Ripe Stars, I gotta say, I really feel bad for OP in this situation. It seems like her grandmother really wants to control her entire life, and she does not give a damn about what OP wants for her life. Not an easy situation indeed. Let us know in the comments what you would do if you were in OP's shoes. And the next one is an update to the grandmother's story. For the update, I have come to the decision that I am moving out by the end of summer at the very latest. I have not told my grandma yet, but I will sometime in the next couple weeks after I've made a few more preparations. My boyfriend and his family are behind me no matter what she says or does, but I'm fully prepared to dispute any guilt trip she might throw at me over my decision. I wanted to say thank you to the people who left supportive comments and advice on my original post. I will make another update after I've finally told my grandma, if anyone's interested. Wish me luck. Edit, I wanted to add, the one thing I'm most worried about regarding moving out is what my grandma will do about my dog. Her name is on his vet record because she made me give them her name instead of mine when we first got him. She buys his food and pays for his basic care, in other words, yearly shots, flea treatment, etc. only because, as I said in the original post, I'm not allowed to work, so I have no money. When we got him, she insisted that he was my dog, and she continues calling him my dog, and I do everything for him, that I've trained him, I feed him, I walk him, I bathe him, I clip his nails, etc. I don't ask my grandma or my brother to do any of that because, again, he is my dog. I love him so much and I could not imagine losing him. But I am worried that when I tell her that I'm leaving, she will insist on keeping him out of spite since he is hers as far as his records go. However, I love my dog and I know for a fact that she and my brother won't be able to take care of him without me because she is disabled and my brother is lazy. I'm not sure what I could do in that case, so any advice would be welcome. And with this, we have reached the end of the video. Thank you so much for watching, and please don't forget to check out my playlists for more awesome videos. Also, if you haven't already, I would very much appreciate it if you could subscribe to the channel and turn on the bell to not miss any videos. Thank you so much, I will see you again tomorrow.